Hello, my name is Bryant Myers, author of the book PEMF, The Fifth Element of Health. You probably know food, water, sunshine, oxygen are essential for life, but there's a fifth element of health that most people don't know is essential, and that is the Earth's PEMFs, or pulsed electromagnetic fields, which is both the Schumann and the geomagnetic field, which is the magnetic field of the Earth. These frequencies and energies are so essential that NASA and the Russian space program actually equipped their spacecrafts with Schumann generators and magnetic field generators. So we need these frequencies. We need these energies for the body's circadian rhythms, energy production, and even to keep a pain-free body, which I'll explain later. But there is a twofold problem on planet Earth, which we'll explore in this video. And PEMF, as we'll find, is the solution to this problem with many benefits. And just to give you a preview of a few of the benefits that PEMF therapy has been research proven to provide, PEMF helps to eliminate pain and inflammation naturally. It will help you to get deep, rejuvenating sleep. It will increase your energy and vitality. PEMF will help you to feel younger, stronger, and more flexible. PEMF will keep your bones strong and healthy. PEMF will help your body with healing and regeneration, and it will help to improve circulation and heart health. And there's many more benefits, but those are just a few. Now, I want to get right into one of the most exciting aspects of my book, which is the body-mind-earth connection. And this connection is the 0 to 30 hertz frequency range, which I'll explain later in my book, but just to give you a brief preview, because it is so exciting that I want to just right away tell you about it. The Earth's magnetic field and the Schumann and geomagnetic frequencies are roughly in the range of 0 to 30 hertz. Now, the brain waves, as established by electroencephalograms and even medical science, are also roughly 0 to 30 hertz, from delta, theta, to alpha, to beta. The tissues and the healing response in the body, meaning the frequencies that the tissues in your body respond to, the nerves, the bones, ligaments, capillaries, are also, as we'll see, in the 0 to 30 hertz range. Well, that was Siskin and Walker. Addy and Bowen showed that your cells ideally respond to 0 to 30 hertz. And here's something that really gave me goosebumps, and my hairs were standing on end the first time I read it, is that the energies that your body emits is also 0 to 30 hertz. So we talk about the body-mind connection, but really it's the body-mind-earth connection, because our tissues, cells, brain, and our bodies are so intimately connected to the Earth's frequencies and magnetic field. So here's an introduction to how PEMF works. I like to say that PEMF therapy acts like a whole body battery charger, helping to recharge your 100 trillion cells. And you only need to use it twice a day for 8 minutes. Okay, so it's very time efficient, and that basically will recharge your cells. And PEMF therapy was featured on the Dr. Oz show in 2011 as the most important breakthrough in pain management, which is probably the number one reason people purchase a PEMF therapy device. There have been more than 10,000 scientific papers and over 2,000 double-blind studies. And you can go to PubMed.com and check on some of those studies. There was a 4-year NASA study done by Dr. Goodwin that really showed exactly the kind of frequencies and energies that are ideal for PEMF therapy, and we'll talk about that later. And the Johnson Space Center even developed a PEMF prototype for bone loss and muscle degeneration in space travel. The FDA has approved PEMF therapy for bone fractures, wound healing, pain and tissue swelling, and even depression. So I call PEMF the fifth essential element of health because I kind of base this after the Greek system and the ancient system of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and then the ether. And most of us know we need food or earth. Most of us know we need water. You can only live a few days without water. You can live maybe a few months without food. Sunlight, if you don't get enough sunlight, you do get seasonal affective disorder. So sunlight is actually an essential element. And oxygen, we can only live a few minutes without oxygen. So most people would agree and understand that, yeah, we need those elements. They're essential. But there's a fifth element, the Earth's PEMFs, that I'm going to show you in this video, and I go into more detail in my book as to the research that proves that PEMFs of the Earth are an essential element, just like food, water, sunshine, and air. So the fifth element in the ancient system is called the ether. And so I kind of, loosely associate, because the ether is kind of energetic, with the PEMF. But there's two main types of PEMFs on the Earth. There's the Schumann frequencies, which come from above, and the geomagnetic frequencies from below. And in my book, I give a nice history of four men that really discovered the essential nature of the Earth's PEMFs and the connection of the geomagnetic and Schumann frequencies with the body and mind. So it's kind of an exciting story, and I ask you to check out my book for that. Now, before we get into talking about PEMF therapy, I just want to give you like an overview, kind of a new way of looking at the human body. So the body is primarily energy and information, a holographic field of energy information, and secondarily physical, although the physical body is important. We have over 100 trillion cells, and there's somewhere around 500 billion chemical reactions happening every second in your body. So our mainstream models for explaining the human body as a mechanistic, sort of a biological machine, or the biochemical model is like a bag of chemical reactions, is insufficient to describe the majesty and the complexity of the human body. So energy medicine and sort of quantum biology, or the new understandings in biophysics, are giving a whole new picture of the human body as a primarily energetic holographic field of energy information, which can communicate via biophotons, and more secondarily physical. So PEMF therapy actually goes along with this new understanding of the human body and can assist the body energetically in healing itself. Now, the Schumann resonance on Earth, you can see in this picture in the upper right that the Earth is a very living planet, and the Gaia hypothesis, or the Gaia theory by James Lovelock, very beautifully and poetically shows this, which I talk about in my book. But the Earth is very living, and you can see from the picture in the upper right that the magnetic field is very complex and stratified. And it's this magnetic field that is the source of the geomagnetic and also the Schumann frequencies. The Schumann frequencies come from the ionosphere, which is kind of the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Just a little bit about frequency. Frequency is defined as cycles per second, and I go into detail in my book, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. But think of frequency, when we think of the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves are very long wavelength. The gamma X-rays are your higher frequencies, and visible light's and infrared's kind of in between. So when we're dealing with Earth-based PEMF, the Schumann and the geomagnetic frequencies of 0 to 30 hertz, we're talking about ELFs, or extremely low frequencies, which are even in the lower spectrum of the radio. Because some of those short band radios, the way they can work around the world is they're kind of almost piggybacking on the Schumann sort of resonance. But the Schumann frequency, the way that it's produced, is through lightning strikes. And on planet Earth, there's about 7 million lightning strikes a day, or about 5,000 a minute. And this kind of rings the ionosphere like a proverbial bell, and to the tune of 7.83 and the higher harmonics. So the Schumann resonance is a quasi-standing wave, or a quasi-scalar wave. So it's kind of a more fundamental, deeper energy. So in the Earth's magnetic field, along with the Schumann resonance, it has a frequency that's modulated. And there was some good research done by Klaus Piancik on the 0 to 30 hertz frequencies of the Earth. And even Nikola Tesla said the Earth's magnetic field was around 12 hertz. So now I want to talk in a little more detail on the body-mind-earth connection, the 0 to 30 hertz range. So let's begin by looking at the study done by Addy and Bowen, where they found that cells respond primarily to 0 to 30 hertz, meaning if you use frequencies higher than 30 hertz, the cells just don't really respond to those higher frequencies. And in their particular study, they found a peak around 16 or so hertz, which would correspond roughly to the second harmonic of the Schumann resonance. But you can still see, though, that the cells are tuned to the 0 to 30 hertz range. Now, a study done by Siskin and Walker, they found that tissues in the body seem to primarily also respond to 0 to 30 hertz. Like, for example, nerve regeneration happens around 2 hertz, bone growth around 7 hertz, ligament healing around 10 hertz, and then the stimulation of capillary formation 15 and 20 hertz. we can see a beautiful picture of the Schumann resonance juxtaposed with the brain alpha state. So alpha in brain state research is sort of a very relaxed state of mind. Like I mentioned earlier in my first video, is that the brain operates roughly at 0 to 30 hertz from low delta up to high beta. But the Schumann resonance, interestingly, is right at this very relaxed alpha state. So brain state research also confirms that the 0 to 30 hertz range is what our brains operate at. We can see a study done by Zimmerman and also confirmed by Sato in Japan, done on Reiki healers and Qigong masters, showing that our bodies actually emit 0 to 30 hertz. In fact, not only like from the hands of these Reiki healers did they emit 0 to 30 hertz, but their hands literally were scanning up and down the 0 to 30 hertz range. So it wasn't like the hands are just emitting one frequency. We actually emit all the frequencies in this Earth frequency range. So think about that for a minute. So our tissues and cells resonate to 0 to 30 hertz. Our brain operates at 0 to 30 hertz, and we even emit up and down in a scanning fashion 0 to 30 hertz. And remember, the Earth itself primarily is giving us a 0 to 30 hertz frequency. So here's kind of a summary, and I showed the slide at the beginning of the first video, and this really just ties it all together. The body-mind-earth connection. The Earth's frequencies, 0 to 30 hertz, the brain waves, 0 to 30 hertz. Our tissues and cells operate at 0 to 30 hertz, and we even project 0 to 30 hertz from our bodies. So you can see this intimate connection we have with our planet Earth and also our body and mind. So now let's get into this idea of PEMF being a whole body battery charger. So I kind of mentioned that in the first video, but the cells are literally miniature batteries. You know, we have 100 trillion cells, and cells are batteries and batteries are cells. In fact, the word battery is a collection of two or more cells by definition. And our cells in our body are able to store 10 million volts per meter, meaning we have a cell membrane that's about 7 nanometers across, and the voltage across the cell membrane is around 70 millivolts for a healthy cell. Now, when we get sick, our cellular voltage will diminish. So there's a direct connection between your health and your cellular voltage. Dr. Otto Warburg did some of the pioneering research on the connection between voltage and health, and he found that healthy cells have around 70 and even upwards to 120 millivolts. And if you have chronic illness or disease, the voltages start to plummet. And, you know, many different chronic illnesses can have voltages as low as 30 to 50 millivolts. And cancer can be like 10, 15, 20 or below. And interestingly, we never hear about heart cancer. And it's because the heart is the most energetic organ in our body. And heart cells will have that 120 millivolts of voltage. In fact, the field in our body extends 15 feet out into space as detected by science. And it's the heart field that's what's going out the farthest. So here's 7 ways that PEMF recharges your cells. And I go into detail in my book on this, but just to very briefly summarize, first, PEMF recharges the transmembrane potential. That's called TMP. And that's basically the voltage across the cell membrane. It also increases ATP production in the mitochondria. And so the TMP and ATP are the 2 primary ways the cells store energy. It enhances the sodium-potassium pump, so it gives a net positive charge on the outside of the cell. Increases cellular pH. And pH, interestingly, pH meters are voltmeters. pH is a direct measure of the voltage of your cells. So if you have healthy cells, you're going to be in a slightly alkaline environment. PEMF helps to oxygenate the cells. It helps to lower blood viscosity, improves circulation and microcirculation. And it creates a healthy level of electroporation. Electroporation literally means helping through using electricity or magnetism to make the cells more porous. And this will allow nutrients to go in the cells more effectively and waste products to go out. But we have a twofold problem. You know, the fact that this is why we need to supplement with PEMF. And the first part of the twofold problem is we're simply not getting enough of the good frequencies of the Earth. And along with that, our Earth's magnetic field is declining in intensity or strength. Another reason we don't get enough of the good is that we're also very insulated. We spend a lot of time indoors. The average person spends most of their time inside. We drive with cars with rubber tires. We walk in shoes with rubber soles. We sleep in insulated beds. And we're spending a majority of our time in concrete and steel structures. So this divorces us or disconnects us from the Earth's natural magnetic field. Part one is we're not getting enough of the good frequencies, and part two is we're getting too much of the bad. And the bad frequencies are your electrosmog. I go into detail in my book on this, but the two main types of electrosmog or dirty electricity are your 60 hertz power line frequencies, and all the appliances in your house are kind of going to be operating at these frequencies. I throw CLFs in there, or compact fluorescent lights, because they're so unhealthy. And again, check out my book for reasons why. So you have the 60 hertz power line frequencies, and you also have the microwave, like 4G networks, and all the modern technology that we're used to with cordless phones, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, smart meters. A lot of these are operating at microwave frequencies. In fact, the 4G network is almost identical to the frequency that's used by microwave ovens. I want to now briefly go over some action steps you can do to clear your house of electrosmog. And in my book, I give detailed explanations as to why you want to consider doing these steps. Number one, get rid of cordless phones and use only wired or corded phones in your house, because they are one of the worst offenders of electrosmog. Number two, minimize cell phone usage as much as possible. Number three, turn Wi-Fi off when you're not using it and directly plug your internet into the Ethernet cable. Number four, get rid of all compact fluorescent light bulbs in your house and replace with incandescent lights. In my book, I talk in detail why compact fluorescent light bulbs are very, very harmful and just not good for you. Number five, avoid high EMF appliances as much as possible and keep a safe distance from them. Number six, don't use cordless baby alarms. They're safer corded alternatives. Number seven, avoid water beds, electric blankets, and alarm clocks. Number eight, try not to live near a cell phone tower. And there's a website called Antenna Search. Opt out of smart meter installation. And of course, invest in an earth-based PEMF device. In my book, I talk about all the benefits at how earth-based PEMF devices can actually cleanse your body of all the static electricity that you can accumulate from electrosmog devices. Let's talk now about what to look for in a PEMF device. And when you're looking and shopping for a PEMF therapy device, in my book, I appeal to, looking for an earth-inspired PEMF device, which means a PEMF therapy machine that is inspired by the Earth's frequencies and intensities, and also is going to go along with the circadian rhythms of your body. And we'll talk about all these things here. But the four main parameters are your frequency, which is cycles per second, the intensity, which is measured in Tesla or Gauss, and typically microtesla, because Teslas are a very strong magnetic field strength. Then you have the waveform, which is the geometry of the signal, and the timing, which is both the duration, based on circadian rhythms, using the right frequency for the right time of day. Typically, we want to be energized in the morning and be more relaxed at night. So those are the four main parameters, actually, of any electromagnetic wave or even any frequency wave that you can describe. So let's begin by talking about intensity or amplitude. And intensity is basically just the strength of the magnetic field. And like I said, it's measured in either Tesla or Gauss. And those are two units that are both measure the same thing when we're looking at PEMF therapy devices. And just to kind of put that into perspective, the Earth's natural static electromagnetic field or magnetic field is 33 to 66 microtesla. And that corresponds to 0.33 to 0.66 Gauss. So 10,000 Gauss equals 1 Tesla. So a Tesla is a much stronger unit. Now, the Schumann resonance, which is more of the frequency component of the Earth's magnetic field, is only 1 picotesla. A picotesla is 1/1,000,000th of a microtesla, or 1/1,000,000,000th of a Tesla. So we're talking about a very, very, very weak intensity. And like we've mentioned earlier, the Earth's Schumann resonance has been proven to be an essential element of health, just like food, water, air, and oxygen. So what we need is essential is actually very, very, very weak. There's a saying, small is powerful, less is more. And you can see in the ADDI window has both an amplitude and frequency window. And we can use an analogy of our senses. For example, the amplitude window for your sense of hearing would be basically a level of sound that was just loud enough that you could hear it and not too loud to cause harm. So within hearing, there's only a certain range of intensities or volume that we can hear. Same thing with light. If there's not enough photons in a room, if it's really dark, we can't see anything. And if we're staring right at the sun, it's too bright, so we can hurt ourselves. That's also true with PEMFs of the earth and what our cells respond to. What Addy and Bowen found was that if you use too high of an intensity, it can cause harm over time. And the NASA study showed that you only need 1 to 20 microtesla to get the maximum benefits from PEMF. That's even weaker than the Earth's static magnetic field. Again, less is more here. So some of these machines that are on the market that are using very high intensities are trying to sell you on the more is better myth. And actually, when it comes to PEMF, less is more, and less is actually more effective, according to the NASA study and some other research out there. I just want to kind of briefly go over a few myths of these high-intensity machines, and you can see a picture, but the point is that you'll know them because they're recommending a much higher intensity, upwards to even 2 Tesla, which is, in my opinion, way too high. These machines will give you some symptomatic relief, but, that's more like allopathic energy medicine. I could give you a painkiller that's very toxic and, it'll give you symptomatic relief, but it's got side effects. That's a very allopathic approach to trying to just shut down the pain, where the healing response, actually, NASA proved that a lower intensity is what speeds up healing and regeneration, actually better than high intensity. It's kind of like homeopathy, where the strongest homeopathic remedies are the ones that are the most dilute. And also, there's this laying on the grass myth where some of these high-intensity machines will say, well, these lower-intensity systems, you don't even need to buy them because you can just go lay on the grass. Well, that's not exactly true. And I talked about the twofold problem on planet Earth, number one. And number two is that these machines that are using intensities in alignment with the Earth's static field are still many orders of magnitude stronger than the Schumann resonance, which is only 1 picotesla. So you are getting a very concentrated PEMF dosage that you're not getting just by laying on the Earth. And if you take a magnetic field detector and put it up to the Earth, all you're going to measure is a static field. You won't get any frequency components unless you have a very sensitive antenna to pick up the Schumann resonance. But our body does have biological antennas that will tune in to these Schumann resonance and the geomagnetic frequencies. Let's now talk about the best frequency, waveform, and timing to look for in a PEMF device. We already looked in detail at the frequency component, which is the 0 to 30 hertz range. And I went into a lot of detail as to why those frequencies are the most effective for the human body and also the most natural. It's actually what the Earth is giving us. It's what our brains operate at. It's what our cells respond to, our tissues, etc. So let's look at now the waveform. And the NASA study was a 4-year, multi-million-dollar study by Dr. Goodwin. And he found the most effective waveform was a rapid rise and fall. And 2 waveforms meet that criteria. The first is the square wave, which is what the NASA study concluded to be the most effective for healing and regeneration. And also the sawtooth, which is an ideal waveform for delivering bunches of frequencies simultaneously. So ideally, you'd want a PEMF device that has both the sawtooth on the full body mat. And what that'll do is it'll give you a full range of the 0 to 30 hertz frequencies, ideally, so you can get many frequencies all at once. And then on the local applicators like the pillow or mat or probe or pen, you would want the square wave ideally because that is the best frequency shown by NASA to break up cycles of pain and also to help with healing and regeneration. So I recommend looking for a PEMF device with a rapid rise and fall waveform. Certainly not a static mattress pad because those have no frequency component. And the machines that use a sine wave is also not rapid rise and fall. The next thing is timing, or this kind of goes along with circadian rhythms of the body, and also, how long do you lay on the mat? Well, research has shown with PEMF therapy versus static magnets that all you need is like 8 minutes twice a day of a low-intensity earth-inspired PEMF system. And that is enough to charge up your 100 trillion cells. Now, the biorhythm is the frequencies for the time of day. So when you use the mat, a PEMF mat, if you use it in the morning, you'd want more energizing frequencies, maybe more of the beta frequencies around, say, 15 hertz, where in the evening before bedtime, you would want, the very relaxing frequencies. So those are just some of the things to look for in a PEMF device. In my book, I go into much more detail on many different things you'd want to look for in a PEMF device. And just check out my book for that. But I want to move on here to now the top 8 benefits of PEMF therapy. So PEMF therapy will, at the cellular level, it charges up the cells. So it's working very fundamentally. And it will help you to, as research has shown, to have stronger bones. It will help improve endorphins and of course, which works with pain relief. And it also directly works at breaking up cycles of pain. It helps you get better sleep. It'll help you to have more energy, better oxygenation and circulation, an improved immune system, relaxation and stress reduction, and nerve and tissue regeneration. And those are just a few of the many benefits that you'll get. And finally, in the last chapter of my book, I go over action steps that you can implement in your life to improve your health right away. So, check out the last chapter of my book, and I go over what foods to look for, the best kind of water. In dealing with full spectrum light and sauna therapy, I give some recommendations in oxygen therapy, and also, of course, PEMF therapy. Thanks for listening, and for more information, go to my website, PEMFbook.com. You can instantly download 3 free chapters there. I always welcome your questions, comments, and feedback. Get in touch with me at PEMFbook.com/contact. I sincerely hope the information in these videos will help you in your quest for greater health, happiness, and well-being.